Good morning, everyone. Shane Jenkins here. Thank you for tuning in. It's already hot here and sunny and beautiful West Houston. I'm already sweating, and it's only 9 o'clock in the morning. So what an honor it is to be here with you. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Shane Jenkins, and I am most recently a pardoned January 6th defendant. I'm also a believer in my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I am somebody who's passionate about justice reform, and that's a little bit about me. But today we have a wonderful guest named Leah Hoops, and she is going to probably drown us in some information that is particularly important to me, because I went to the Capitol on January 6th to protest what I felt was, at best, a manipulated election, but what I still truly believe was a stolen election. And so this lady is into all kinds of investigations, investigatory things, and I'm sure she's going to share a lot of that. But the most important thing to me is the election, and all elections. And so if we don't have an election that we can believe in and that we can trust in, that just completely undermines everything that this nation stands for. If we're not electing the people fairly and legitimately that we set out to elect, then what are we doing here? You know, this experiment is really for naught. If we're having selections and not elections, then what are we even doing in America? And so I believe, you know, we've had manipulation from the media, we've had manipulation from the courts, and we've had all different kinds of things going on. I believe, you know, I'm probably going to get sued for saying this, but the Dominion voting machines, and I forget what the other one is called, scorecard or whatever it is, but, you know, them being hooked up to the Wi-Fi, and we all watched Mike Lindell's expose on all that, and that kind of went squirrely. But I love Mike Lindell, but I see his point, though. It is important that we stand up and fight for the freedom of our elections and for this country. And so without further ado, I would like to introduce everybody to our special guest, Leah Hoops. Good morning.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for coming on.
Of course, and congratulations to you. I've been friends with quite a few January 6ers and a lot of people that traveled down to January 6th. And it's one of the greatest things that I think that President Trump, has done is to provide you guys with that pardon. It was 100% an illegitimate election, and you guys had the freedom to be down there and assemble and speak freely. And it was weaponized, and it was a coup, and we all know it.
Yeah. So knowing that, and you say that, and I believe that it was a stolen election. So, as a concerned citizen, right? If you believe that your election process is being subverted, which I felt like I saw enough with the videos, whether it was, I believe that was from Fulton County, Atlanta, Georgia, or whatever it was, these things that I knew that were manipulation. If I know for a fact in my heart of hearts that they are stealing or whatever, manipulating, deceiving the American people with the election process, then what is my duty as a citizen? I mean, do I go hold up a sign, or do I say, oh, we'll get them the next 4 years, you know, or do we watch what we watched the last 4 years and all those people go through, all the people that died? I think about like Laken Riley or Jocelyn Nungry, who died here in Houston due to the open border policies that Biden being selected and put into office. Like, all these people in America suffered as a result. And so I feel like it's our duty, our obligation to throw off that government. And I don't know what that looks like. I'm not saying go out there and be violent, but I think that we should have used more lawfare or done a sit-in protest or something and had them redo the election or something. I just don't know. What is your opinion on that?
So I got involved as a concerned American, specifically in my backyard. And that is really how we keep our republic. And we're talking about manipulation, in your introduction, in the news media and also within the courts. But it's more than that. All the way going back all the way into the 30s, a communist manifesto was read into our Congress. And it's the slow war. It's the long war. And they've been trying to take over our republic, which is what we are. We're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. That's right. And in every institution, in the schools, in the banking system, In the business area, religion, they've taken over with, the communist, Marxist ideology. And if you me like I do and you read, especially about your enemy, Karl Marx was a Satanist, and his goal was to get rid of Christianity and to destroy Western civilization. And that's really what you're seeing now. It's not about stolen elections. It's really not. That's what I learned. It's how I got involved in understanding my local government and understanding politics and understanding the election system, which they have completely subverted. It's about the extraction of wealth, and it's about power and greed and evil. Stolen elections are means to an end. How can you get a certain judge in a position? How can you get a school board member in a position? Your local positions have more of an effect on your daily life than the presidency does. Not to say that we shouldn't care about our presidential, position or who is being put into position, but really they've been stealing elections for a very, very long time. And then I would say right around the 2000 era with the hanging chads, that was one of the greatest steps there was, because George W. Bush is a raging globalist. And a lot of the surveillance, a lot of the
would Al Gore have been any better though if we put Al Gore in there?
Right. So they gave you this. It's illusion that you had a choice.
Right.
And Bush was very powerful. The Bush family obviously was very powerful, but warmongering and everything else. And then you had 9/11, and you had the Patriot Act and the PrEP Act, and you have all of these things that have been slowly violating our constitutional rights and moving our liberties over a very, very long time. And that's the realization that we're at right now in 2025.
Well, so you say, I forget how you said, the extraction of wealth. And and I would say that, and that's by I'm assuming the elites or the globalists or corporations or both, government in lockstep with these corporations and elites, wealthy families. Who specifically would you target?
So if you're talking about, what I've noticed over the past 5 years is people got very involved on the national level, and everyone did a top-down approach, and then it burnt everybody out. It's very hard to get involved at the national level and to be able to have an effect at the national level. And what I have found specifically is that in your backyard is where your power is. If you think about the Revolutionary War, we won battle by battle, town by town and county by county. That's how we keep our republic. And the ways that they launder money and they keep people in key positions, like solicitorships in your county, boards of elections, your commissioners, your township supervisors, whatever it may be, however you're set up in your county across the country, it really is a blueprint. And they launder through real estate, deed theft, conservatorships. They launder through school boards. They launder through utility companies, and they keep that criminal enterprise by keeping in these certain politicians and these judges. And that's what we've learned, even including and not limited to trafficking of children, which is happening in the family courts. And I can talk about that a little bit.
So you say there's an extraction of wealth from the top or from the government, as I'm assuming, and then this money is funneled back into these. Or how does this, explain it like to the layman, just like you're talking to somebody who has no idea? Because I know a little bit, but I don't know everything. So just kind of give us a rundown of the money trail and how that operates and what that looks like.
So I'll give you for instance, school boards are very important in elections. Your school boards, their operating budget is based on taxes, right? And they are, when you inflate real estate and you inflate appraisals, and you'll see counties like mine that just did a reassessment for the entire county. And they're like, we need to reassess your property value, and we're going to inflate these numbers so that we can justify a bigger budget, right? In the school boards, in your county. This is how it works, right? So now you're basing everything off of fake numbers. right? They increase their budget. They start working on their capital projects. And in the interim, whatever their unfunded liabilities are specifically, and that just means like your pensions that you owe back to teachers or county employees, they don't get paid, right? So you're working on temporary money that's based off of inflated appraisals, inflated assessments, fake assessments, so that they can have their temporary projects that they pocket money from and receive money from. And in the interim, right, you're creating debt that gets pushed off down the line. So,
and that doesn't go. Now, I'm from Tarrant County. And so we recently, I want to say in the last 10 years or so, they had a really big problem. They overinflated all the values of all these homes, and people were like, what are y'all doing? There's no way I can't sell my house for the dollar amount that you're saying it was worth. And I actually had to go to the tax office and I said, there's no way that my house will sell for, this is what I paid for it like 5-10 years ago. And then I told them, and so they actually I went and complained. They lowered the value, but I was just like, what is it? So that was an issue. So I sorry to interrupt, but I know you have some ties to Tarrant County and
yes. Specifically, we had talked about another way that they launder money is through the private jail system. You talked about this reform, which I am all about. And Geo was a very big company in Tarrant County. Years ago, there was an investigation, and it was also happening here in Delaware County. We had Geo, which is a major prison company, a private prison company that comes in and contracts with the local prisons. So that's just another way that they launder their money. And we all know how that goes. Back to the school board and their operating budgets and how they meaning the legislature within your state, what they end up doing is they amateurize the debt. So they just keep pushing it off like, 30 years from now, we'll pay off all the pensions. But right now, Pennsylvania is like $68 billion in debt to the pension fund. And so when nobody's addressing it from the top, right, it trickles down to the bottom. And the taxpayer ends up, forking the bill. And that's what we're seeing, whether it's the national debt or it's your state debt, no matter what, the people end up being the brunt of that debt. So it's in a downward spiral. Our country is in a lot of trouble. And this is why you're seeing when President Trump comes in and Doge comes in, which, by the way, was created by Obama. When Doge comes in and they actually start auditing and they're like, all of this spending and all projects, like they need to go away, right? They're funding NGOs, they're funding, ridiculous projects. But if you take that and you put it down to the local level, it's much easier for someone like you or me to have power over and to investigate. So I hope that makes sense. Like you can take care of your backyard and have more an effect on your daily life if you just stayed within your wheelhouse and within your path that is right in your backyard. There is enough corruption going on in your counties all across the country that you can have a very big impact on.
We know that Harris County here, where I'm at, and where I'm from originally, Tarrant County is as corrupt as well. And so that's something that I always appreciated about Steve Bannon, was very fiscally conservative and very, he was absolutely against them kicking the can down the road, whether it was on the budget or whatever, but he was also passionate about, there's a guy that had I forget, it was the precinct committeeman strategy. And it was basically just start at your local level. Get involved. Everybody should run, whether it's for dog catchers, city council, school council, whatever it's going to be, and just get involved. And like, I think we may have discussed this, but this is a participatory constitutional republic. This is something that we have to actively be involved in, and Benjamin Franklin says you got a republic if you can keep it. Like, and that means you have to take action. You have to be involved. You have to participate. And I think this is the problem with America. We're so worried about this that we're not paying attention to what that we're getting. They're just got both hands in our pockets, just going through all of our stuff, and they're stealing generational wealth away. And I don't know how much we're in debt nationally, $37 trillion. And I'm assuming that you've got the same people spending. It's like they've got a credit card with no limit, and they're just like, oh, just blow all the money. And then it's like, well, I'll probably, have a 10, 15-year congressional career, and then I'll be gone, and the next group can deal with it. And nobody wants to take the chance to hold the line and stand against this giant machine that's going to roll over them. And it's like Speaker Mike Johnson seems like he's lost his spine, and they just keep, passing this budget. And I'm just like, what is going on? And so where you conduct investigations? Are you specifically like you're on the trail of specific people? I think you said something about Governor Shapiro with presidential dreams, Shapiro, dual citizenship, Shapiro.
So I got involved in 2019. I became a committee woman in my township, and I observed for just this. It's what I do. I observed, take it all in, tried to understand the operational, the operation of what a committee person does, what politics, who's involved. And I have very deep roots in Delaware County, or AKA Delco, as we call it. And I know a lot of people. So I was able to absorb a lot of information of who's who in politics. And let me be very clear, the corruption is on both sides. I do not subscribe to party. For me, this is about not only Delco, but this is about my country. And that's what we wrote about in the parallel election, our book. We talked about the who, the what, the why, the when, the how. We give pictures of the people that were involved on the Republican side, and we talk about the Marxist takeover in 2019, where our county flipped from Republican to Democrat after 150 years. And then they poured in, a Soros-bought district attorney. These people that came into our county council were completely communist, have said that the Constitution is antiquated. And they also were bringing in Zuckerbucks. We got drop boxes. Of course, then we had the bioweapon known as COVID-19, which was 2020. Prior to that, the Secretary of the Commonwealth, Kathy Bookbar, signed on to the machines along with Governor Wolf. And the mail-in ballot was brought to us by the Republican Party in Pennsylvania. So the operation was created, and we talk about it in the book, starting in 2016. Trump took office starting in June, then it just started to happen over a period of time. And I knew early in 2020 what was happening to our country. I started networking. I was out. I did not care. I was very against masking and the closing down of businesses. I've been fighting for a long time for my son, for his rights in school, for kids in sports, for medical freedom. So across the board, I have been a constitutional protector. And
how frustrating is that for you to see? I mean, it sounds like you're way ahead of the curve, and you see all these things happening. And I'm sure it sounds like you're out there screaming it from the rooftop, and people are just like, I don't know, they're disconnected. They're not paying attention. They don't have courage. They're just afraid to stand against the current of what everybody else is doing, or what is it? Because I'm like you, I stood against COVID and masking. Now I would put my gaiter on if I had to go in somewhere or whatever, but I didn't get vaccinated or anything like that. None of my children are vaccinated. So how, is that frustrating for you to continue to see these fights? And again, you're involved in something else again. And it's like, I've been telling you since 2016, 2019, COVID, whatever, these elections, how is that frustrating? How is that?
It's been a journey to say the least, but I've had this intuition, and my faith is it's unwavering. So my faith in God, really, and I listen, when I have that gut instinct, and I know, I fight for it, tooth and nail. I will not stand down. And that's just how I am. And I believe that's, where we need to be again in this country. I'm a daughter of liberty, my ancestors fought for this country. And you have to do it with courage. And sometimes that means that you have to do it myself. And that's where I started. I started alone, and I started to recruit like-minded people. And I build an army, and that's how we do this. Every person that's been involved, the Patriots, we are Christians. We are heavy believers in God, and in the founding of this country. I used to spend a lot of time being angry. I still have righteous anger. Don't get me wrong. I'm like a fireball, but I've done a lot more writing, and I realized that people deserve grace when they're coming to these conclusions. There was such a psychological warfare when it came the violation of our constitutional rights and the masking and the vaccines, the bioweapon, really, which is what it is. Yeah. It is very overwhelming for people. And you have to have grace for people and not be resentful. And that's how you kind of you keep going. And I've learned that over a period of time. I'm hell bent. I will never bend a knee to tyranny. I would rather die. And I found my hill to die on. And I'm there 5 years in, and I'm still here. I've protected myself proactively. There are amazing people that have supported us. And, I just feel thankful to be a part of the greatest battle for our republic.
That's right. It's almost like a new revolution. It's like we kind of lost our way almost. I don't know what we're going to do. If they're going to have to start a new government out of debt or what they're going to have to do, but it is really cool to hear your story. And so now moving forward, and you did say, so what made you said you saw what they were going to do with the 2020 election, and what did it unfold as you imagined? Did they do something different, or was it exactly as you had predicted and they used the methods that you had recognized or seen before? Or kind of give us a little insight into that.
Oh, it was way worse, actually. And the cover-up is always worse than the crime itself. And, I had recruited a lot of people, military, law enforcement, to become poll watchers in the 2020 election. And I was very, very, I was loud about everything. And I had set up quite a few people, including Greg Stenstrom, who is the co-author of the parallel election, into our counting centers. And these counting centers across the country were placed into every swing county that was needed for the presidential elections. So a lot of these companies that are involved, Hart, InterCivic, Dominion, ES&S, Bluecrest, all of these people that are involved, the companies that are involved, are purposeful in obfuscating our elections. And what we found over a period of time is, you are talking treason. That's what we're talking about. And there are constitutional remedies for a tyrannical government, which is why we have the Second Amendment. And I'm not afraid to say that. Yeah. I will never be afraid to talk about the fact that we are constitutionally protected in defending ourselves against a tyrannical government. And that is what we saw for 4 years, was tyranny and treason. And they inserted fake mail-in ballots that have really there's no way, if you were to forensically go backwards and try to recreate the elections, it's impossible. And that is on purpose. 68% of the EU countries don't use the mail-in ballot system because it's riddled with fraud. There are so many vectors of fraud, whether it's USB sticks, the fake mail-in ballots, the algorithms, the unsecure machines, the tabulators, the certain people that they've placed into Delaware County that have come from other places, and they are there purposefully. So it's not all election workers. It's not, Mary Ann, who's 75 years old, volunteering in her poll. It's the Jim Allen of Delaware County, who was placed into Delaware County, who came from Cook County, Chicago, who I investigated, okay, who's placed in that position, all right, to steal the election. Mm-hmm. And then what we did after was very proactive. I'm a proactive person, not a reactive person. And we positioned ourselves to be protected. So we went public with the book. to talk about the evidence because they were suppressing it in the courts. We have done complaints with the Office of Inspector General, with the FBI, House Judiciary. I mean, we have filed with literally every law enforcement agency you can think of. We testified in front of the Pennsylvania Senate Committee. We have done so many interviews over the past 5 years because the more you speak about it, the harder it is for them to shut you down. And then the investigations just kind of took off on my end. That's my specialty, is the open source investigations. And, I started filing public records requests, FOIA requests, and I started seeing the collusion and the cover up of the fraud. For instance, I got a public records request that took me 3 months fighting just for billing records of the solicitor for the Board of Elections of Delaware County. I got 654 pages that I have combed through over the past year and a half, 2 years. And I can literally show you in their own billing the collusion with factcheck.org, the Pennsylvania Attorney General's Office, the FBI, Dwayne Morris, University of Pennsylvania. The list goes on and on.
So it sounds like they're paying for the cover up with fact check and these types of things. Like, oh, we fact check. No, you're wrong. That's incorrect.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. And, one of the biggest donors to factcheck.org, and FactCheck is run by the Annenberg Public Policy Center, which is housed in the University of Pennsylvania. And guess who was on the board of trustees for the University of Pennsylvania up until 2023? Dr. Shapiro.
I was going to guess that one.
Guess who was the presidential professor of the Annenberg Public Policy Center? Joe Biden.
Oh,
guess
wow.
where the confidential documents were hidden?
Oh, wow. At the University
of Pennsylvania. Guess who created the COVID-19 vaccines? The monkeypox vaccines, the avian flu vaccines? University of Pennsylvania. And they are colluding with the Board of Elections in Delaware County in their own billing in order to create an article to say that what I was saying in my witness declaration, in my filings, was fake, was false. Like, they are this brazen to put it in their billing. I've made posts about it. I have put it in court filings, and it's just the reality of it. These people are willing to cover this up, spend millions of dollars to pay for these attorneys, and they're getting caught. And in their own words, that's the beautiful thing about it. You can catch these people doing the crime in their own words, in their own billing, in their own filings.
Well, so two things, and so we're paying for all the attorneys and the cover up and everything else. I'm sure the taxpayer is. But what is the name of the book that you keep mentioning that way? So I think that's it behind you. But
that's it. It's called The Parallel Election. It's a blueprint for deception. You can find it right on Amazon, actually, Barnes and Noble. You can find it right there. It really is for people that want to get involved locally. It's a blueprint. You guys can go through it. We even talk about how to file certain public records, things to ask for, things to look for, how to get involved. And we really do. We are hated by both sides. Let me just put it to you that way. We really are, and I love every second of it. And now it's what we're seeing now is, all these people from the RNC, that Ronna McDaniel, who it was like, well, we're not going to fight the fraud. We're not going to talk about the fraud. We're just going to cheat better, and we're going to ballot harvest better, and we're going to embrace the mail-in ballot system. And that's where you get the Scott Presslers of the world and the Charlie Kirks of the world, who are exploiting the mail-in ballot system, and it's disgusting. And it's on the backs of the J6ers, and it's on the backs of the Patriots and the people who have been exposing the fraud. And it's disgusting. And that's just where we are. There are people on both sides of the aisle, in the conservative movement, in the Patriot movement as well, and they need to be exposed. It's disgusting. It is absolutely repulsive to me.
So is that and again, I don't know Again, a layman, somebody who just got out of federal prison 100 days ago, been in there for 4 years since January 6th. But the mail-in ballot system, and do you believe now? So I like Charlie Kirk. Now, maybe ignorant, so you don't yell at me for that. But is that so? Is the mail-in ballot process just in general something that you feel like should be completely done away with? You believe
Correct.
in paper ballots, same day voting, like hand counted, no machines. Other now, do you have more beef with Charlie Kirk other than the mail-in ballot thing, or is that's
No, I'm repulsed actually because if you can't justify what you are doing and you can't and you block people, like for instance Scott Pressler, who was funded very much so by Charlie Kirk and the RNC in embracing the mail-in ballot system. If you look at Colorado and Washington, you are given a mail-in ballot. You are mailed it. It is strictly mail-in ballots, no in person. The more that you centralize the election system, you are achieving communism. There is no equity and no equitable. There's no when you're talking about the law and you compare the in-person vote and voting in a polling place in comparison to a mail-in ballot, it is completely unequal when it comes to the law. There is no oversight of the mail-in ballot system. So if you go into a central counting center where they take all the mail-in ballots, they bring them in, and you're voting 55 days. 55 days, okay? You are allowed to vote. Now in Pennsylvania, you can't vote early. You can get a mail-in ballot on demand. You can go to a vote center, you can fill it out, but they do not count it or canvass it until election day. So we don't have early voting. We just have an on-demand mail-in ballot.
So does so for me, it drags out the process. There's not really chain of custody. Whereas if you're in person, paper ballot, here you go, here's my ballot. It almost seems like with that system, it's the person who can convince the most people to vote. Like I don't know what the percentage on average of, let's say in Harris County, I would have to guess, I don't know how many people, let's just say there's 10 million people or whatever. There's 10 people, but what percentage, obviously participating in an election is kind of, you may have to take off work. You've got to register to vote. You've got to do these kinds of things that are a little bit more than I think. A lot of people are lazy. Like I don't want to register to vote. I don't want to do this, that, the other. So these other, now we're going to mail you a ballot, and then we're just going to come say, hey, we would really appreciate it if you voted for so-and-so for us right here on this line. You don't have to go anywhere. You can actually just fill it out right now, and you can give it to me, and I'll make sure that it gets where it needs to go. And it almost seems like they're taking away the importance. They're almost undermining the process, because it seems like I would feel like the people, you got a lot of elderly people, a lot of veterans. I just imagine the people that I think that put importance on election day, right? And I see how that's how it's not it is undermined by this whole other extra, like an extra biblical process, extra constitutional process that is not even something that is supposed to be done, that they've undermined it and diminished election day voting. Is that kind of correct? Or
listen, everyone is entitled to their opinion on how they see things. I just see it as it's exploiting the election system, just like they exploit everything else. When it comes to vaccines, or it comes to the medical system, everything's supposed to be a convenience. Voting is not supposed to be convenient. Like people kind of lost their lives and limbs in order for you to have the right to vote. Like, it's a right? It's a right. Not a privilege. It's a right. So anytime someone starts saying to me, oh, I want to really make this safer for you, and I want to make sure that, everyone, first of all, I don't think everyone should vote anyway, because some people have the IQ of a toaster. So I don't think they should be involved in the voting process. Let's be honest here. Have you spoken to some people? People are still wearing masks. So for me to be like, hey, you know what, Sally, while you're breathing in your own CO2 and like touching your mask 47 times, I don't think you should be involved in the voting process. I think it should be an effort on your part because my friend who died, during battle or whatever, or my grandfather or whoever it may be, I think you should earn your right in that sense and not make it more convenient for you because, and that's just, it's all a guise anyway. Under the guise of safety, give me the Patriot Act under the guise of, well, we're really just trying to make sure that we get rid of domestic terrorists. Well, do you know what happened? They exploited the Patriot Act. And I was a victim of that because my name was used in the Delaware County Times because I protested with 50 parents in my school board and brought everyone unmasked because we were fighting the masks. It got write an article in Delaware County. My face was right there. And remember, well, I don't know if you remember this. No, you probably don't. The National School Board Association wrote to Merrick Garland, tried using the Patriot Act against parents. Against parents. Okay, that's where we are right now. I was article number 13 in that letter to Merrick Garland, okay, and we fought back. Moms for Liberty fought back, a whole bunch of groups. There was 400,000 of us that wrote to the DOJ and President Biden and said, shove it up your ass, okay? You want to bring it? Please bring that shit to my, excuse my language, but to my front door. I dare you. And that's how we fought back. The National School Board Association lost millions of dollars, and they lost their all of the school boards.
Yeah, we lost your video, Leah. I don't know if it was well, we lost Leah for a second, but I agree. We watched many a day from on War Room with Steve Bannon about I forget what it was, somewhere in Virginia, but they were spying on soccer moms and using the FBI to take down license plates and people. I remember this particular event. It was I guess it was a transgender sexually assaulted a girl at school for this man or young man was in the women's restroom and sexually assaulted this guy's daughter, and he went to the school board and they tried to kick him out of the school board meeting, and he was tackled by police and all that. And so for them to weaponize the DOJ for these people to sick people on sick the FBI on these people that are just trying to exercise their rights is absolutely ridiculous. We were having some technical difficulties. I guess we lost Leah. We'll be back with you in just a second. All right, we lost you. It's okay. No worries.
I was talking too much about the federal government.
Oh, is that what it was? It seems like you got a stronger signal now, so it's good.
I mean, that is the reality of it.
We're recording, so okay. All right, yeah, go ahead and pick back up wherever you can back up a little bit, but you were saying that talking about Merrick Garland and how they wrote to President Biden.
There were all these groups that got together, Moms for Liberty, No Left Turn in Education. There were these patriot groups that wrote a letter back to Merrick Garland specifically about coming after, parents that were going to school board meetings fighting for their children. And it blew up in the National School Board Association's face. They lost about, I think it ended up being 21 states from their association, and they lost millions of dollars in fees. So, the minute that you fight back and you use, the power is in numbers, and we won. We fought back and we won, and that's how you do it. You have to have the courage, and you have to encourage other people too. That was another reason for the book. And if you kind of see on the other side is the Biden laptop report. My good friend Garrett. He's awesome. He's Marco Polo report. That's a personalized signed copy from Garrett. Okay. He is another person who, they took on a lot. They took on a lot of lawfare. But he had the courage to go through the Biden laptop and had received the, a copy and created the report. And it is insane the amount of crimes, that Hunter Biden committed that,
But
his
they
part.
were, they had bigger things to investigate soccer moms at school board meetings, or like I was talking about briefly for the young man that was a transgender that went in the women's restroom. I forget what county that is, but that was right there by DC where I was at in the jail.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but they had bigger things to investigate than the Hunter Biden laptop. But that's one of the things that it sucks. The last 4 or 5 years that the last 8 years, watching them go after President Trump and just
Mm-hmm.
relentlessly attack that man and his family and watch the media lie. But the beautiful thing about it is it has created these citizens who have like, you know what, you're going to go after me, and I'm a soccer mom. I'm trying to raise my children, and you're going to sick the DOJ and the FBI on me, really? Or people that went to the Capitol, trespass, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you persecute these people, and then you end up giving all these people a megaphone that you're like, you do not want these people, like these people that are just trying to live their lives. Now they're going to put down their 9-to-5 job, and then they're going to relentlessly go after you and try to, we want the Constitution to matter, and we want our rights to matter. We're tired of you undermining it. We're tired of you going after the little guy who is going to stand up to these corrupt. And like, I love how you say both sides, because we didn't, if it was just one side, we could just say, see what they're doing, and it would just be easy. But it's a coordinated effort. And I think there's very few, there's a few. I kind of like the Freedom Caucus. I'm not a huge fan of a lot of these people, but there's a select handful of people that are going to toe the line, that are going to be willing to stand up against it. And that's what I'm thankful for the last 4 years. I don't like all the people that lost their lives and all the stuff that's gone on. And I think about all the endless war, like if the Patriot Act and going into Iraq and Afghanistan and all this crap, all these people who offered up, like you say, life and limb and PTSD and all the suffering that they're going through, and the suicides and all these things that we've had to deal with as an American people. It is a tragedy that we've had to endure this as citizens. And I regret all the years that I took this country for granted. When I was in and out of prisons, addicted to drugs, living in the streets, doing all this nonsense, fighting and selling drugs and whatever it was that I was doing, I was asleep, and I was so caught up in my own problems that I wasn't aware. And I just hope that the American people will wake up, pull your head out of your ass, America. And but I am thankful for you, and I'm thankful for this fight that we're involved in. And so that was a little bit about the 2020 election. So you said is there a book about the report on the Biden laptop? Is there a book about that as well?
So Marco Polo, you can follow them on X, and you can you can purchase the report. It's like 600 and some pages. It is insane. And they did an excellent job of pulling that apart. They did what the Office of Inspector General should have done, and that's Michael Horowitz. And if you talk about these two books, so one has to do with the election, and the other one has to do with the Biden crime family. Okay. All of those investigations went up the chain. And I found this through a FOIA request. It was actually somebody else's FOIA request that I magically found through the grace of God. And it showed our evidence going through the chain of command, all the way up to the Office of Inspector General, going through Bill Barr, Richard Donahue, the FBI, all the U.S. attorneys. And it was obstructed to the very top. And it was obstructed in the Office of Inspector General, the OIG. And if you see President Trump getting rid of all of these inspector generals, and these U.S. attorneys, it's because that office is so compromised. Its purpose was to investigate fraud, waste, and abuse inside the government. So they were supposed to be the oversight, and they became corrupted and weaponized, and that's what happened. So all the FBI whistleblowers that came forward, all the people that came forward about Biden, all the people that came forward about the elections, the COVID, everything, war crimes, whatever you want to talk about, all went through the Office of Inspector General, and they went to die there. Like, the investigations were obstructed, and we have the proof of that. And we've provided whistleblower declarations and witness declarations to everyone and their mother. So everybody's got a copy. And we're not going to be, I'm till my death, I will continue to talk about what they did to us. Josh Shapiro, when he was the Pennsylvania Attorney General, he was notified, sent a certified letter, given our declarations. He was provided information by then U.S. Attorney William McSwain, who now works for Dwayne Morris, by the way, the same law firm that contracts with Delaware County for the Board of Elections. Anyway, William McSwain did not do his job. He was told to stand down by Bill Barr about Delaware County and handed off to Josh Shapiro, which is what he was told to do. And then Josh Shapiro sent 2 special agents to my front door and other witnesses' doors to intimidate and harass us. And I told them to go scratch. And then they sent the FBI to my front door, and I told them to go scratch too. And I didn't recognize what they were doing. I said, you speak to my attorney and go F off, basically, in a nutshell. Because you're not going to intimidate me. I've done nothing wrong. I'm the witness.
Right. You're investigating and trying to dig stuff up and figure out what's going on, or you witness some stuff, and here they send them to you to intimidate. That's crazy. That is crazy. And I like your F off spirit. Yeah. But what was that like for your family and your community? I mean, your job, or like. Yeah.
So it's been, to say the least, emotionally distressful. And it has wreaked havoc on my life. But that is the cost and the sacrifices that you make. And my son, who is now an adult, at the time was in high school, and he was, they were shut down and kept at home. He was home at the time. He did not answer the door because I instructed him to never answer the door. And he's also told to question law enforcement, which you are supposed to do, because most of them are either just doing their job or they're trying to entrap you. I believe that there are good public servants. I believe that there's good law enforcement. And we've seen this time after time. I'm not saying blatant, like blanket across the board, but you are to exert your rights, and you are also to protect yourself. When it comes to, law enforcement. And that's what I told my son, do not answer the door. And he didn't. I've received hate mail. I've been, my life has been threatened. They have surveillanced us illegally from the federal to state to local level. They've drug us through the mud. 2 defamation cases against me and my co-defendants. And one of my co-defendants was President Trump. In the Philadelphia case, Savage v. Trump et al. We successfully defended ourselves, representing ourselves 900 days in court. And they offered us settlement in January of this year. And then, we told them basically, to go scratch. We were going to go all the way to a jury. And of course, they withdrew their complaint. Excuse me, it was last year, January of last year. And we got a favorable order from a Democrat judge, Judge Michael Erdos, who followed the law, and he needs to be credited for that. That he upholds his oath to the Constitution, and we were successful in getting sanctions against the attorney, J. Connor Corcoran. And they found that he had violated the rules of professional conduct, and his license was suspended for 18 months, and he had to shut down his law practice, and that was our work. But part of the settlement was to leave behind President Trump and Mayor Giuliani. And we said, absolutely not. In the other settlement cases, like with Fox and all that other, people settled, and they did that so they wouldn't have to go through discovery, and the evidence wouldn't be presented. That's why they did that. But we're not settling. So we've won 2 defamation cases against us. The other one was in Delaware County. Some of our co-defendants were the Federalist, Margot Cleveland, Newsmax, President Trump, Mayor Giuliani, America First Policy Institute. So we have been part of very high-profile cases, and we've represented ourselves successfully. And we have one more case against us, which is another nonsense lawfare case, which we're taking care of. And I'll be announcing later the next step in that case, right on X.
Well, I want to say, as somebody who fought through the fight as well. I want to say kudos to you, because that is not something that's easy. And with the family, and you're a mother and trying to raise your son and be a provider and a protector and going through that. I watched that in the DC jail. I went all the way to trial, went all the way to the end. I refused to take the plea deal. As a matter of fact, I told them, they offered me 92 to 115 months. And I told them, I told the guys, I said, I wouldn't care if they gave me 10 months or if I knew I was getting 10,000 years. It doesn't matter. I told them, I'd love to consider your plea offer, but I don't negotiate with terrorists. And so it is just not, it's not something that is emotionally, and I feel like I'm suffering as a result today, like emotionally, mentally. It has been difficult after these 4 years in prison and solitary confinement and all these other things. But I just wanted to give you, kudos and virtual high five for, for staying in the fight and not backing down. And that is something to be said, because I watched the government break men. I watched them turn them into federal informants. I watched them force them to take the plea deal. I watched the men want to stand strong, and then I watched their wives at home crumble. And they're like, you're going to tell me you could take this plea deal and get 2 years and be home in 6 months, and you're going to refuse that, and you're going to go to trial, and you're going to take a chance on getting 20 years. And so it's just, when you don't have the support at home, or like, I was uniquely positioned that I was able to stand. I'm a single guy. My kids live with their moms, and so they're okay. But it is an admirable thing for you to stay in the fight. And it's an admirable thing for all the people that fought with you and fought alongside of you. And so kudos to them and to you. So I do have a question. So what is the fight? Let's kind of get into the pending event. Like, you're going to have an update, I guess, on this other lawfare case, but we see kind of the writing on the wall for Josh Shapiro. Look, he's eyeing the White House for 2028. And so give me an update on that, and then we'll kind of close out after that. But I want to hear about Josh Shapiro.
So not only was he a Biden elector in 2020, he was also on the ballot in 2020 for Pennsylvania Attorney General. And I have met up with, and again, I do want to give out a great shout out and an appreciation and for the patriots that work right in the trenches with me. I cannot do it without them. I can't do it without my family. My boyfriend, my son, all the amazing human beings that I have in my life. And that's only, through God. And these people have sacrificed a lot, and not all of them are out in front like I am. And that doesn't mean that they are not fighting and doing like the Lord's work. Yeah. But for Josh Shapiro, I have found actually through, I went to see Garrett when he was presenting the Biden laptop report at an event, and I met a very, very loyal friend, Sean Connolly, at that event. And Sean is a whistleblower, a Security Exchange Commission whistleblower, who's been fighting Josh Shapiro in Montgomery County for years. And he's exposed, we talk about the extraction of wealth. He's exposed Toll Brothers, which is one of the largest contractors, builders in the country. And his home was built like awfully, and all of these homes, and the fraud that was committed in his township. He uncovered this and then found other whistleblowers, one of them being a Toll Brothers worker. And he submitted all of this information to the same people that we did. And of course, it got shut down. And Shapiro is in bed with Toll Brothers and other people that are extracting wealth and committing, major crimes, RICO, criminal RICO. That's what we're talking about. But we've all kind of bonded together and found each other. There are women right now who are their children are being sexually trafficked by their former spouses through the court system. These men are sexually abusing the children. They've brought it to the attention of the court system, the family court system, and these mothers are being destroyed, and they can't get their kids. And they're exposing the fact that these fathers are, very well connected to Josh Shapiro. And these programs that they use for the family court system, it's disgusting. So Josh Shapiro is very heavily funded. He's a fair and just prosecution guy, which is a Soros Tides Foundation, Soros NGO. He's Some of his donors are Steven Spielberg. He is very involved with Meek Mill, which is P. Diddy, Jeff Lurie from the Eagles. He is heavily funded by a lot of people. He's a globalist. And the bigger thing, the extraction of wealth, which started with Obama going after the oil industry, has continued to Biden and Shapiro. Shapiro is bringing hydrogen, green hydrogen, to Pennsylvania. There's 2 hydrogen hubs, one in Fayette and one in Delaware County. The Philadelphia refinery was blown up in 2019 by Obama. That was 100% an inside job. That's another part of my investigation. I could talk about it at a later time. But they're ushering in these green energy scams, which have fallen apart for years. They fell apart during Obama. They fell apart with Biden. They fell apart with Biden's, family that took money from Obama. The solar panels, the windmills, like now it's hydrogen. And they are extracting wealth from Pennsylvania. And what's interesting, and this is how God works. I've been trying to expose this hydrogen green energy scam to President Trump for a long time to please come in and expose Josh Shapiro to make sure that Pennsylvania is not, it doesn't go belly up. And just this morning, Portugal and Spain 2 years ago in 2023 announced with the World Economic Forum that they were turning to green hydrogen. And guess what happened this morning right before I got on this show? Spain and Portugal are having a major blackout.
Yeah.
That's how God works. And I'm working with some great people, which I cannot talk about in Pennsylvania, legislatures who are very concerned about the hydrogen green energy scam in Pennsylvania. And if you don't know how important Pennsylvania is when it comes to the energy of this country, we provide about 3% of the GDP of this nation because of the natural gas in Pennsylvania. We have more natural gas than Saudi Arabia. So whoever holds the power in Pennsylvania and keeps the country from accessing that natural gas, they control everything. And that's Josh Shapiro.
Well, it's ridiculous. We suffered through, I don't know if it was called Free-Zola or what they called it, but it was right after January 6th. But we had we've got the wind turbines and all that down here. And so I guess a percentage of that depended on the wind turbines, and they froze or whatever. And so I guess the oil froze in them, whatever it was. They have oil in them, which is crazy to even say, but yeah, so it's a dangerous, I just hope that the American people do not buy into the green energy. I mean, electric cars are cool. I just don't think I don't think the technology is there yet. I think it's an interesting concept and a good idea. I just don't feel like the batteries are being extracted properly, which is just as bad for the environment as anything else that we're going to be doing. Yeah. It's a lot of it's coming from China. Yeah.
The other scam right now is they're trying to make China and Russia as like the biggest enemies, and our greatest enemies right now still are inside of our government and are in different states. And that's what we need to be focused on is our, it's not America first, it's America only. And we need to be focused on the domestic terrorists and the people that are still inside of our government that are subverting our elections, who are extracting wealth from the people. That's who we need to be focused on. And in Pennsylvania, what they're doing is they're like, well, we don't want China mining, or we don't want the lithium from China, right? So now, guess what's happening in Pennsylvania? Because of the hydrogen and the carbon capture, the wastewater from these hydroelectric projects, they're trying to sell everybody because a byproduct of that is lithium. So now they're justifying the green energy, and they're like, well, we don't want the lithium from China to make our batteries. We can just get it from Pennsylvania from the wastewater from the green energy scams. So if you see like this, it's criminal. And people are like, yeah, we don't want China in Pennsylvania. But in the meantime, one of the biggest foreign land owners in Pennsylvania is Canada. And all of these green energy projects, it's related to Trudeau, who's gone, but now we have Carney. And his company is now involved in all the green energy scams in Pennsylvania. So Canada is actually our enemy, not China, not Russia, it's Canada. And the Marxist that is now sitting in the prime minister spot, because we were dealing with Trudeau, which is why Trudeau was meeting with Shapiro not that long ago in Pennsylvania, because he was ushering in all of these new green energy projects that are directly related to the new prime minister in Canada. Isn't that crazy how that works out, Shane? So Canada is our enemy, President Trump. Not China, not Russia. It's good old Canada. And I will continue to say that until someone freaking listens to me, and they will. Eventually, people are going to start talking about Josh Shapiro like Laura Loomer is and other people, but Josh Shapiro is the devil. And
Hopefully
he is going to...
Hopefully it's not late like everything else. You're ahead of the curve on everything. But if we wait until 2028 or 2027, right before the election, it's too late. So
that's right.
Anytime you want to come on and share all that, I would love to have that. So if you could say, I'm a concerned citizen, obviously, what should I be doing? And how do I get involved? I don't think I should run for city council or school board, maybe the Republican precinct committeeman, or what level, just the everyday, blue collar or whatever. How do you get involved? What do you recommend? What would you say? What do you have to say to the American people as well? We want to hear it.
So first and foremost, it's your republic and you have a 10th Amendment power as the people. So you need to be involved. There's no excuse. So start there. Listen to your gut. Have discernment, whether it's Republicans or Democrats or people that call themselves conservatives. You need to question everything and everyone at all times, and they need to prove themselves to you. The onus is on the government to prove that they are running free and fair elections. It's not on you to prove that they're committing fraud. And please stop using the word democracy, because I've offered money to people if they can find that word for me in any of our founding documents. And they can't, because we're not a democracy. You need to speak loudly, and you need to remain steadfast, and you need to dig your trench in your backyard. And you can start by going to a township meeting or a county meeting and see where they're spending your money and telling the lies. And, right now, we're dealing with our county, who is $78 million in debt since they've taken, office. They're using AI right now. They're using an AI company in order to search the internet for misinformation. There's no such word. Disinformation, misinformation. These are all the things you need to take out of your vocabulary. You need to speak to your neighbors. Start there. Start with civil discourse. Okay, your neighbors are not your enemy. You need to take Trump out of it. You need to take the national stuff out of it, and just talk to them on a level of civil discourse. I talk to everyone. I do. And don't believe that, people are just, they're hopeless. They're helpless. You can't help them. Nope, that's not true. I have flipped a lot of people. Bernie Sanders, supporters, Kamala Harris supporters, Biden supporters, people that wanted nothing to do with politics. And they're picking up the phone or they're messaging me and they're like, oh my God, like, you were right. It's not about being right. It's about, I can see things and I'm trying to warn you to save guys. You have to speak freely. You have to not be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to talk about your Second Amendment. Don't be afraid to talk about the First Amendment. Don't be afraid to talk about, like with your neighbors. Be like, oh, hey, did you know that like our taxes are going up 25% in Delaware County? Those are the conversations I have with my neighbors. I don't talk about Trump. I don't talk about stolen elections. I don't talk about this stuff. I say, listen, you have an issue right now. Okay, how are you going to afford your groceries? 25% increase in Delaware County just this year. Those are the conversations you have with your neighbors. And it, like I said, just show up at a meeting. Go to your school board. Even if you don't have kids in school, if you're a senior, you're still paying school taxes. You are still being affected by their budgets. try to speak directly to the people that are going to be running for office, and stop donating to party. Okay? Stop it. You need to speak to people one-on-one. If you decide you want to make a contribution, make a contribution to an individual candidate that you believe in. Okay? Or, I don't know, donate to someone's legal fund if they're fighting lawfare, or, whatever it may be. But stop being involved at the national level when it comes to the Republican Party, when it comes to the Democrat Party. They're all in bed with each other. Every single one of them. I don't trust a single person on either. I just don't. So and most importantly, you need, it's not just about prayer. Prayer is not enough. It's very effective. It's very helpful. And, but at the same time, like, you need to pick up the tools that God gave you and dig your trench. And you need to die on that hill.
Take action.
Take action. Be courageous. Don't be afraid. And that's the only way we're going to save our republic, Shane. That's basically it. And buy a book.
Hello. So we will get the links for those books that you mentioned up. How can people follow you on social media?
The main place you can follow me is on X at Hoops, HOOPES _Leah, LEAH. It's very fiery. I give a lot of information. I also write investigative reports on intelligencer.today. And more of those will be coming very, very soon. I also want to give a shout out very quickly to my good friends, Sandy Weyer and Lynn Nestor, who are both January 6ers, who have also received their pardons as well. And Adam Villarreal, who is going after these prosecutors and is looking for any kind of misconduct in any of the sentencing hearings. Shane, if you want to link up afterwards, I would like to get you maybe some information that way. So a lot of people, a lot of great people.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. We're just starting out, and I appreciate you sharing. That's I feel like I just opened up a fire hydrant. So I'm sure I'm going to be marinating on that all day, but we will get your socials up. And again, thank you so much for fighting. And it does. I am in awe of your courage and your longevity and your ability to stand up even whenever it's not popular and when it's controversial and you don't have a side. You're like, it's neither side is okay. And so I love that you're willing to stand alone and be courageous. And that's what it's going to take to save this country. And so thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thank you, Shane. God bless you.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. It's been that was such an interesting conversation. It's a lot to absorb. So watch it again if you need to. I know I'm going to marinate on all that. There's a lot of corruption in our government that we need to fix. And there's a lot that we can do as concerned citizens to combat that. What an honor to be here. Thank you for tuning in to Chestnut Checkers. And until next time, Shane Jenkins. Peace.